My name is Eleanor Williams, and I am 58 years old. For 30 years, I raised my daughter Amanda alone, after my husband died, working two jobs and sacrificing everything. Last week at my unborn grandson's baby shower, I sat quietly as my daughter raised her glass in a toast. My heart shattered as she turned to her mother-in-law Patricia and said, "This is the woman I wish had raised me. She will be the one and only true grandmother to my child." Nobody noticed when I slipped out the back door, tears streaming down my face. 3 decades of love and sacrifice dismissed in a single moment. But the next morning, something special arrived at Amanda's door that would make her see the truth she had forgotten. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and if you've ever felt invisible to the people you've given everything for, please subscribe to my channel. Some lessons about gratitude come at the highest price. The day my husband Daniel died in a car accident, I became both mother and father to our 3-year-old daughter, Amanda. That was 30 years ago, but I remember every detail of that rainy Boston evening. The police at my door, the smell of their wet uniforms, the sound of Amanda asking when Daddy was coming home. I was only 28 then, with a half-finished art degree, and no idea how I would manage on my own. We moved from our small house in the suburbs to a 2-bedroom apartment in Dorchester that I could afford on my librarian's salary. The walls were thin, the heating unreliable, but it became our home. Every morning I would wake up at 5 to prepare Amanda's lunch before dropping her at my neighbor's apartment, then rush to catch the 6:15 bus to make it to my first job at the library. After my shift ended, I would work evenings at a local bookstore 3 nights a week, leaving Amanda with various babysitters, whoever I could afford that month. "Why do you have to work so much?" Amanda would ask, her little face pressed against the window as I left for my evening shift. "Melody's mum is always home when she gets back from school." Those words stung, but I would smile and kiss her forehead. "So you can have everything you need, sweetheart. I'll be back before you know it." The truth was Amanda was a challenging child from the beginning. Even before Daniel died, she had been strong-willed and demanding. After losing her father, these traits intensified. She threw tantrums that could last hours, refused to eat anything I prepared, and compared our life unfavorably to her friends at every opportunity. "Why can't we live in a house like Jessica?" she would ask. "Her mum and dad take her to Disney World every summer." I would try to explain that Jessica had 2 parents with good jobs while I was doing my best on my own. But to a child, explanations about financial realities meant nothing compared to the bright, shiny lives she saw her classmates living. As Amanda entered her teen years, our relationship grew more strained. The comparisons became more pointed, the disappointment in her eyes more evident. "All the other mums bake cookies for the bake sale," she complained one afternoon. "You never have time." I had stayed up until 2 in the morning that day, baking chocolate chip cookies from scratch, because I couldn't afford the store-bought ones all the other mothers sent. They weren't perfectly round or uniform, but I had been so proud of them. "I made these last night," I said, showing her the container of homemade cookies. Amanda looked at them and frowned. "They look weird. Everyone will know they're homemade." I swallowed the hurt and smiled. "Homemade is better. They have extra love in them." She rolled her eyes and took the container. As she walked out the door, I heard her mutter, "I wish just once we could be like normal people." Despite the challenges, I poured everything I had into giving Amanda opportunities. I saved for years to afford piano lessons when she showed musical interest. I helped her study for every test, staying up late to quiz her on vocabulary words and mathematical formulas. When she needed a dress for prom, but all we could afford was something from the department store clearance rack, I spent weeks secretly altering it to look like the designer dress she coveted. Dating was never a priority for me after Daniel. A few men had expressed interest over the years, But Amanda made it clear she didn't want a stepfather. "He's just going to leave like Dad did," she said when I mentioned that my coworker had invited me to dinner. "Your dad didn't leave, honey," I corrected gently. "He died. He would never have chosen to leave us." "Same difference," she replied with the callousness only teenagers can muster. "He's not here." So I remained single, focusing all my energy on work and raising Amanda. I put aside my own dreams. The art classes I'd loved the idea of traveling, even simple pleasures, like reading a book uninterrupted. Everything was for Amanda. The hard work paid off academically, at least. Amanda graduated at the top of her high school class and received a scholarship to Boston University. I cried at her graduation, remembering all the late nights helping with homework, all the overtime shifts to afford tutors when she struggled with calculus. "I did it, Mum," she said that day, momentarily softening as she hugged me in her cap and gown. "No, sweetie," I replied, squeezing her tight. "We did it." College transformed Amanda in ways I hadn't expected. She bloomed in the academic environment, making friends with ambitious, wealthy students whose parents were doctors, lawyers, and executives. She began to dress differently, speak differently, adopting the mannerisms and interests of her new social circle. During her visits home, I could sense her discomfort with our modest apartment, the way her eyes darted around as if seeing the shabby furniture and outdated kitchen for the first time. When she graduated from law school, I sat in the audience bursting with pride. My daughter, a lawyer I had sewn a special dress for the occasion, saved for months to afford a nice hotel room near campus, so I wouldn't have to commute early in the morning. After the ceremony, I waited patiently as Amanda introduced me to her classmates and their families. "This is my mom," she would say, then quickly change the subject before anyone could ask what I did for a living. Amanda secured a position at a prestigious law firm in Boston, and our interactions became less frequent. Monthly dinners at first, then quarterly, then just holidays. When we did meet, she would spend much of the time on her phone, or telling me about her colleagues and their exciting lives. She rarely asked about mine. Then she met Jason Thomas. Jason came from old Boston money, the kind of family that had buildings named after them at universities. He was handsome, charming, and genuinely kind. I liked him immediately, even as I wondered what he saw in my ambitious, sometimes cold daughter. Perhaps he saw beneath her carefully constructed exterior to the vulnerable girl who had lost her father too young. The first time I met Jason's parents, Robert and Patricia Thomas, was at an elegant restaurant downtown that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Patricia was everything I wasn't. Tall, immaculately dressed in designer clothes, her silver hair perfectly styled. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her place in the world. "Eleanor, what a pleasure to finally meet you," she said, air-kissing my cheek. "Amanda speaks so highly of you." I smiled, knowing this was likely an exaggeration. Amanda had been coaching me for days on how to behave at this dinner. What to wear, not my usual comfortable clothes. What to say nothing about our struggles. What to order. Follow Patricia's lead. Throughout the dinner, I watched Patricia captivate everyone with stories of her charity work, the celebrities she knew, the places she had traveled. Robert, a distinguished-looking man with a perpetual expression of mild amusement, occasionally added a comment or correction to her stories. Jason seemed used to his mother's performance, while Amanda hung on Patricia's every word, laughing too loudly at her jokes, nodding enthusiastically at her opinions. "Eleanor, Amanda tells me you work at a library," Patricia said during dessert. "How quaint. I always thought librarians had such an important role preserving knowledge for the masses." The way she said masses made it clear where she thought I belonged in the social hierarchy. "Yes, I've been at the Boston Public Library for almost 30 years now," I replied. I love connecting people with books that might change their lives. 30 years at the same place, Patricia mused. Such loyalty is rare these days. Robert has had to let go of employees who stayed too long. They get complacent, don't they, dear? Robert nodded absently, checking his watch. I saw Amanda cringe slightly at the implication that I had lacked the ambition or ability to advance in my career. She quickly changed the subject, asking Jason about an upcoming work event. The engagement came 6 months later, followed by a wedding that the Thomas family insisted on paying for entirely. We want to do this for Jason, it's our only son's wedding, Patricia had said, in a tone that made it clear my financial contribution would be both unnecessary and insufficient. The wedding was a lavish affair at the Thomas family's country estate in the Berkshires. I wore a dress I had saved for months to afford, while Patricia floated through the reception in Valentino. I sat at the parents' table during the reception, feeling like an imposter, as Patricia's friends inquired politely about my life before quickly moving on to more interesting topics. During Amanda's emotional speech, thanking her new in-laws, she mentioned me only briefly, and thank you to my mother who is here today. No elaboration. No acknowledgement of the sacrifices, the years of hard work, the unwavering support. Later that night, as I helped Amanda with her dress in the bridal suite, I caught her looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mum," she said hesitantly, "do you ever wish things had been different for us?" "Different how?" I asked carefully, removing a hairpin from her elaborate updo. "You know," she shrugged. "If Dad hadn't died, if we had money connections, all the things the Thomases have." I stopped what I was doing and turned her to face me. "Amanda, I've never measured our life together by what we didn't have, but by what we did have. We had each other. We had love. We had enough." She nodded, but I could see she didn't really believe me. In her mind, our life had always been lacking, and now through Jason, she had found the family she thought she deserved. I drove back to my apartment that night alone, with the knowledge that my daughter had finally gotten everything she had always wanted. Everything except appreciation for what she had already been given. The text arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was shelving books in the poetry section of the library. "Mum, I have news. Can you come over after work?" My heart raced as I texted back a quick, "Of course." Amanda rarely invited me to the luxurious downtown condo she shared with Jason. When she wanted to see me, she usually suggested meeting at a cafe, halfway between our homes. All day, I wondered what the news could be. A promotion at her law firm. A move to another city I didn't dare hope for what I secretly wanted most. A grandchild. When I arrived at their building that evening, the doorman greeted me with unusual warmth. "Congratulations, Mrs. Williams," he said with a smile as he called up to announce my arrival. Amanda opened the door wearing a loose-fitting sweater, her face glowing in a way I had never seen before. "Mum," she said, reaching for my hands, "Jason and I are having a baby." The joy that surged through me was overwhelming. I pulled her into a tight embrace, tears springing to my eyes. "Oh, Amanda, that's wonderful news." Jason appeared behind her, his face equally radiant. "We wanted you to be the first to know," he said, putting his arm around Amanda's shoulders. "Well, after my parents. We told them this morning. A small pang of disappointment that I wasn't truly the first to know was quickly overshadowed by my excitement. A grandchild. After all these years of it being just Amanda and me, our family was growing. "How far along are you?" I asked, following them into the living room with its panoramic view of the Boston skyline. 12 weeks, Amanda replied, settling onto the sleek leather sofa. "We wanted to wait until we were past the first trimester to tell anyone." I nodded, calculating in my head. "So you're due in February. February 10th. Jason confirmed, bringing in a tray with herbal tea for Amanda and coffee for us. But my mum says first babies often come late. There it was again. Patricia's wisdom already shaping their expectations of parenthood. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into helping Amanda prepare for the baby. I brought over homemade soups when she had morning sickness, researched the safest cribs and car seats, and even started knitting a baby blanket, though my arthritic fingers protested. During one of my visits, as I was helping Amanda sort through some of her old childhood books to see what might be salvageable for the baby, Patricia arrived unannounced, carrying several shopping bags. "I was just at Barney's and found the most adorable baby clothes," she announced, barely acknowledging my presence as she spread out tiny designer outfits on the couch. "And I've made an appointment with Dr. Richardson for next week. He's the top obstetrician in Boston, delivered all 3 of the Kennedys' grandchildren." "But I already have a doctor," Amanda protested mildly. "Dr. Chen at Boston Medical. Mum helped me find her." Patricia waved a dismissive hand. "Dr. Chen is fine for regular checkups, I'm sure. But for the actual birth, you want the best. Robert and I insist. Our first grandchild deserves nothing less." Amanda glanced at me apologetically, but didn't argue further. I continued sorting books, silently feeling increasingly invisible. The pattern continued over the following months. Whenever I suggested something for the baby, or offered advice from my own experience, raising Amanda, Patricia would swoop in with a more expensive, exclusive alternative. When I mentioned the practical convertible crib I had researched, Patricia had already ordered a custom-made French crib that cost more than 3 months of my salary. When I offered to help paint the nursery, Patricia had hired an interior designer who specialized in celebrity baby rooms. "Mom, you don't need to knit a blanket," Amanda said one afternoon as I worked on the soft, yellow blanket I had been creating for weeks. "Patricia already ordered one from this amazing artisan in Italy. It's made from the same wool they use for the Pope's garments or something." I set my knitting needles down slowly. "I thought you might like to have something made by your grandmother. Something personal." Amanda looked uncomfortable. "It's sweet, really, but everything has to match the nursery theme. The designer is very particular." Each dismissal hurt, but I told myself not to be selfish. This was Amanda's pregnancy, her child, her choice. If she wanted to embrace the Thomas family's way of doing things, that was her right. I would find my place as a grandmother somehow. But as the weeks passed, my place seemed increasingly uncertain. Patricia had taken control of every aspect of the pregnancy and upcoming birth. She scheduled doctor's appointments, attended every ultrasound, purchased everything the baby might need for the first year of life and beyond. "Amanda hardly returns my calls anymore," I confided to my best friend Rachel over coffee. Rachel and I had met at a single mother's support group 25 years ago and had been each other's lifeline ever since. "She's just busy," Rachel suggested, though her tone lacked conviction. "Pregnancy is overwhelming." "It's not the pregnancy," I sighed. "It's Patricia. She's consuming Amanda's life. Everything I suggest Patricia has a better, more expensive version. Every story I tell about raising Amanda Patricia has some perfect parenting anecdote that makes me feel like I did everything wrong." Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You were an amazing mother, Ellie. Amanda wouldn't be where she is today without you." Sometimes I think that's exactly what she believes, that she succeeded despite me, not because of me. The final straw came when I received a formal invitation to a baby shower for Amanda, hosted by Patricia at the Thomas family home. The invitation specified, "No gifts, please." Patricia had informed everyone that she had already purchased everything the baby could possibly need. I called Amanda immediately. "A shower? That's wonderful. I would have been happy to host it for you." There was an awkward pause on the line. "Oh well, Patricia offered, and her house is bigger, and she knows so many people. I understand, I said quickly. I'm looking forward to it. Is there anything I can do to help? I could make those lemon squares you always loved. Another pause. Actually, Patricia has hired a catering company that does all the Vogue photo shoots. But thank you for offering. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the elegant invitation. The baby shower for my daughter, for my first grandchild. And I was just another guest. Not the grandmother, not the host, not even a contributor. Just someone to fill a seat. The day before the shower, Rachel called to check in on me. "How are you feeling about tomorrow?" she asked. "I'm fine." I lied. "It's about Amanda and the baby, not me." "Ellie." Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. "I've known you for 25 years. You're not fine." I took a shaky breath. I feel like I'm losing her, Rachel. Like Patricia is replacing me in every way that matters. And the worst part is Amanda seems to prefer it that way. "Then tell her how you feel," Rachel urged, "before it's too late." "I can't make this about me," I insisted. "She's pregnant, she's happy. The last thing she needs is her mother making emotional demands." "It's not an emotional demand to ask to be treated with respect," Rachel countered. "You're allowed to have feelings too, Ellie." I promised to think about it. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't say anything. I had spent my entire life putting Amanda's needs before my own. I wasn't about to stop now, even as it felt like my heart was breaking. The Thomas family home was a sprawling colonial in Beacon Hill, the kind of residence that appeared in architectural magazines and historical tours. As my taxi pulled up to the wrought iron gates, I clutched my small gift bag nervously. Despite the no gifts directive, I couldn't come empty-handed. Inside was a silver frame containing a photograph of Amanda as a baby being held by her father. It was the only picture we had of the three of us together before Daniel died. A valet took my car keys, looking slightly puzzled at my aging Toyota among the luxury vehicles lining the circular driveway. I smoothed down the front of the new dress I had splurged on for the occasion, a simple blue sheath that had cost more than I usually spent on clothes for an entire season. The front door was open, revealing a grand foyer where a young woman in uniform was checking guests against a list. "Name?" she asked without looking up. "Eleanor Williams. I'm Amanda's mother." Her eyes flickered up briefly, a hint of surprise crossing her features before she composed herself. "Of course, Mrs. Williams. The event is in the garden, through the main hall and out the back doors." I followed her directions, passing through rooms that seemed to belong in a museum rather than a home. Everything was immaculate: gleaming hardwood floors, antique furniture, oil paintings in ornate frames. Photos of the Thomas family adorned various surfaces. Patricia and Robert at charity galas on yachts at ski resorts. Jason growing up with every advantage: riding lessons, sailing competitions, graduation from prestigious schools. The garden was even more impressive than the house. Tents had been set up with elegant white furniture tables, laden with elaborate flower arrangements, and a champagne fountain bubbling at the center. At least 50 women milled about in designer dresses, many of whom I recognized from the wedding as Patricia's friends and relatives. I scanned the crowd for Amanda, and finally spotted her sitting in what could only be described as a throne-like chair under the main tent, Patricia standing protectively beside her. Amanda was wearing a pale pink maternity dress that complemented her glowing skin and growing bump. She looked beautiful, and for a moment, all I felt was pride. "Eleanor, you made it," Patricia called out as I approached her tone, suggesting she had expected otherwise. "Amanda, your mother is here." Amanda looked up from the gift she was unwrapping, something large and obviously expensive, and smiled. Hi, Mum. You look nice. Thank you, honey. You look beautiful, I said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. How are you feeling? Wonderful, she replied. Patricia has this amazing organic tea blend that's completely eliminated my back pain. That's nice, I murmured, handing her my small gift. I brought you something. I know you said no gifts, but this is just something small. Amanda took the bag with a slightly embarrassed expression. Oh, you didn't have to do that. Open it later, Patricia interjected smoothly, taking the bag from Amanda's hands and placing it on a table already overflowing with elaborately wrapped packages. We have a schedule to keep. The caterers are about to bring out the first course. Before I could respond, a server appeared to escort me to my assigned seat, at a table far from Amanda filled with women I didn't know. They were discussing their recent trips to Europe and the private schools their grandchildren attended. I sat silently picking at the exquisitely prepared food and wishing I were anywhere else. After lunch, there were several planned activities. A guessing game about baby statistics, a craft station where guests could decorate onesies with professional artists available to assist, and a photo booth with props. I tried to join in, but it was clear these women had known each other for years, sharing inside jokes and common experiences that excluded me. And you are? One woman asked as we stood in line for the photo booth. Eleanor, Amanda's mother, I replied. Oh, her eyebrows raised slightly. How lovely that you could come. Patricia has done such an amazing job with this shower, hasn't she? She's going to be the most wonderful grandmother. I nodded mutely, unable to form a response that wouldn't betray my hurt. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself increasingly relegated to the background. When it was time for Amanda to open gifts, Patricia sat beside her exclaiming over each item and often adding, "This will go perfectly with the nursery theme I designed," or "This matches the wardrobe pieces I already purchased." My small gift remained untouched at the bottom of the pile. Finally, as the event was winding down, Patricia clinked her champagne glass to call for attention. The garden fell silent as she stood beside Amanda's chair, one manicured hand resting possessively on my daughter's shoulder. I want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate our darling Amanda and the newest addition to the Thomas family. She began, her voice carrying effortlessly across the garden. As many of you know, I've been dreaming of becoming a grandmother for years, and I couldn't have asked for a more perfect daughter-in-law to make that dream come true. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I took a large sip of my champagne, trying to quell the growing knot in my stomach. Amanda, Patricia continued, turning to my daughter, we are all so thrilled to welcome your child into our family. Robert and I promised to shower this baby with all the love opportunities and advantages that we gave Jason. Amanda's eyes glistened with tears as she looked up at her mother-in-law with an expression of pure adoration. She struggled to her feet, taking the glass of sparkling water Patricia handed her. I want to make a toast, Amanda said, her voice wavering slightly with emotion. To Patricia. My heart sank as all eyes turned to my daughter. When I was growing up, Amanda continued, I used to look at my friends' families and wish I had what they had. A beautiful home family vacations, parents who attended every school function without being exhausted from working multiple jobs. I stared at my champagne glass, feeling each word like a physical blow. Meeting Patricia showed me what I had been missing all those years. Her grace, her impeccable taste, her ability to make everyone feel special. Amanda turned fully toward Patricia, now seemingly forgetting that anyone else was present. This is the woman I wish had raised me. She will be the one and only true grandmother to my child. Gasps of delight and approval rose from the crowd. Patricia pressed a hand to her heart, feigning modesty, even as triumph gleamed in her eyes. She embraced Amanda as everyone applauded. Everyone except me. I sat frozen in my chair, my champagne glass trembling in my grip. 30 years of sacrifice, the missed sleep, the second jobs, the deferred dreams, the endless worry, the unconditional love, dismissed in a single sentence, replaced by a woman who had never wiped Amanda's tears, never stayed up all night with her fevers, never stretched $1 to make Christmas magical, never put her own needs last time and time again. As the applause continued, I set down my glass, picked up my purse, and quietly stood. No one noticed as I slipped away from the table. No one saw me walk through the house toward the front door. No one called after me as I stepped outside and asked the valet to return my car. No one realized I was gone. The drive home passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. By the time I reached my apartment, a strange calm had settled over me. The pain was still there, throbbing beneath the surface, but something else had emerged alongside it. Clarity. For 30 years, I had been telling myself that Amanda's happiness was all that mattered, that my sacrifices were worth it because they gave her a chance at a better life, that her success was my success. But in that garden, listening to my daughter publicly reject everything I had been and everything I had done for her, something broke inside me. Something that had been bending and stretching for decades finally snapped. Amanda had made her choice clear. Now it was time for me to make mine. The moment I walked into my apartment after the baby shower, I collapsed on the sofa and finally allowed the tears to come. Deep, wrenching sobs that shook my entire body. I cried for the young woman I had been suddenly widowed with a toddler to raise. I cried for all the nights I had gone to bed hungry so Amanda could have enough. I cried for the art career I had abandoned, the relationships I had forgone, the opportunities I had sacrificed. Most of all, I cried for the daughter who could so casually dismiss 30 years of love and devotion in front of a crowd of strangers. My phone rang repeatedly, Rachel checking to see how the shower had gone. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't speak, couldn't form words to describe the humiliation and heartbreak I had experienced. After what felt like hours, the tears finally subsided, leaving behind a hollow emptiness. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how I had gone so wrong. Had I loved Amanda too much? Not enough. Had I been too permissive or too strict? Had my financial struggles somehow warped her perception of what family meant? The phone rang again. Rachel. This time I answered. Ellie, what happened? I've been calling for hours. She said she wished Patricia had raised her. I whispered, my voice raw from crying. In front of everyone. She said Patricia would be the only true grandmother to her child. She what? Rachel's voice rose in disbelief. Tell me everything. I recounted the entire shower, the opulence, the isolation, the toast that had shattered my heart. Rachel listened without interrupting, though I could hear her indignant gasps. That's not just hurtful, Ellie, that's cruel, she said when I finished. What are you going to do? Do, I echoed. What can I do? She's made her choice. You can fight for your place in your grandchild's life, Rachel insisted. You can remind Amanda of everything you've done for her. You can refuse to be erased. I sat up slowly. Rachel's words igniting something within me. She was right. This wasn't just about me and my hurt feelings. This was about truth, about history, about ensuring that my grandchild knew who their grandmother really was, not just the wealthy, polished version that Patricia presented, but the woman who had sacrificed everything for her daughter. You're right, I said, a new determination in my voice. Amanda needs to remember who was there for her all those years, who will be there for her when the glamour fades. That's my girl, Rachel encouraged. So what's the plan? I glanced across the room at my hall closet, where decades of memories were stored in boxes and albums. I think it's time for Amanda to receive a history lesson. After hanging up, I pulled out box after box from the closet, spreading their contents across my living room floor. Photographs, school reports, artwork, birthday cards, medical records, financial documents, the physical evidence of a life spent raising a child on my own. I worked through the night selecting items that told our story honestly, both the struggles and the triumphs. The medical bills from when 6-year-old Amanda had pneumonia, and I had stayed awake for 72 hours straight, sponging her forehead and monitoring her breathing. The certificate from the art contest she had won in 4th grade, where I had stayed up for nights helping her perfect her painting. The budget notebooks showing how I had stretched every paycheck to afford her dance lessons, her school trips, her college application fees. There were painful memories, too. The letter from the electric company threatening to cut off our power during one particularly difficult winter. The rejection letter from the art school I had hoped to attend part-time. The pawn ticket for my mother's jewellery that I had sold to pay for Amanda's senior prom dress. But mostly there were moments of love. The handmade Mother's Day cards, with their wobbly writing and glitter that still clung to the paper decades later. The photos of our camping trips, the cheap vacations I could afford that Amanda had initially complained about, but later admitted were some of her happiest memories. The letter she had written to me from college, thanking me for pushing her to apply to Boston University, even when she doubted herself. One item in particular caught my eye. A journal I had kept during Amanda's first year of life. I opened it to a random page. Amanda took her first steps today. Daniel would have been so proud. She fell after 3 steps and cried, but then looked up at me with such determination in her eyes. She gets that from him. I promised her today that no matter what happens, I will always be there to catch her when she falls. Always. Tears blurred my vision as I added the journal to the growing pile of memories I wanted to share with my daughter. By dawn, I had filled a large wooden box, the same box Daniel had made for me as a wedding present, with the artifacts of our life together. I wrote Amanda a letter to accompany the box, my hand shaking slightly as I put my feelings into words. Amanda, yesterday at your baby shower, I heard you say you wished Patricia had raised you, that she would be the only true grandmother to your child. Those words broke my heart in ways I cannot fully express. I am not writing this letter to make you feel guilty or to demand an apology. I am writing because I want you to remember the truth of your life, our life together, before you completely rewrite our history. In this box are reminders of who was there for you every day for 30 years. Who worked 2 jobs so you could have dance lessons and SAT prep courses. Who sat beside your hospital bed for 3 days straight when you had pneumonia. Who helped you apply to college and celebrated every achievement no matter how small. I was not a perfect mother. We did not have the material advantages that Patricia and Robert could have provided. But I loved you with every fibre of my being, and everything I did, every sacrifice I made, was for you. When your child is born, you will understand what it means to love someone so much that you would give up everything for them. You will know what it feels like to watch your child hurt and wish you could take that pain onto yourself instead. You will experience the joy of seeing your child succeed and know that no designer handbag or luxury vacation could ever compare to that feeling. I don't know what place, if any, you want me to have in your child's life, but I want you to make that decision with the full knowledge of who I am and what we have been to each other. Whatever you decide, know that I have loved you from the moment I knew you existed, and I will love you until my last breath. Mum. I sealed the letter and placed it on top of the items in the box. Then I called a courier service and arranged for the box to be delivered to Amanda's condo the following morning. As I closed my apartment door behind the courier, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. For the first time in 30 years, I had put my own truth ahead of Amanda's comfort. Whatever happened next was up to her. The morning after I sent the memory box to Amanda, I woke up feeling oddly peaceful. I had said what needed to be said, shared what needed to be shared. The rest was beyond my control. I went about my day as normally as possible, heading to work at the library and losing myself in the familiar routine of shelving books and helping patrons. My phone remained silent in my pocket. No calls from Amanda, no messages. By closing time, I had convinced myself that she had probably thrown the box away without opening it, or handed it off to her housekeeper to deal with. The thought stung, but I had prepared myself for that possibility. As I walked to my car in the library parking lot, I spotted a familiar figure leaning against the driver's side door. Amanda. Her pregnant belly was prominent now, her face puffy from what looked like hours of crying. In her hands was the journal I had kept during her first year of life. We stared at each other across the parking lot, 30 years of love and misunderstanding hanging in the air between us. "Mum," she finally said, her voice breaking on that single syllable. I approached slowly, uncertain of what was coming. "Amanda, I'm surprised to see you here." She held up the journal. "I've been reading this all day and going through everything in the box." I nodded but said nothing. This was her moment to speak, not mine. "I never knew," she continued, tears spilling down her cheeks, "about the second job at the bookstore, about pawning Grandma's jewelry for my prom dress, about the art school you gave up." "It wasn't important for you to know those things," I said softly. "What mattered was that you had what you needed." "But it is important," she insisted, her voice rising. "All these years I thought we struggled because you weren't ambitious enough, or educated enough, or connected enough. I resented our tiny apartment, and your exhaustion, and the hand-me-down clothes. I looked at other families and thought they had more because they were better somehow." Her words stung, but I appreciated her honesty. "What changed your mind?" She held up a faded piece of paper I recognized immediately. My rejection letter from the Massachusetts College of Art, dated just 2 months after Daniel's death. "This letter says you were accepted with a partial scholarship," she said. "But you didn't go." "I couldn't," I explained. "The partial scholarship wasn't enough, and there was no way I could attend art classes while working full-time and raising you alone." "But you never told me you were an artist, that you had dreams beyond the library." I shrugged. "By the time you were old enough to understand, it didn't seem relevant anymore. My life was about you, not my old ambitions." Amanda's face crumpled. "That's exactly the problem, Mum. Your life became all about me, and I never even saw it. I never appreciated it. And then I met Patricia with her perfect house and perfect clothes and perfect life, and I thought that's what a mother should be." "Patricia has had advantages I never had," I said carefully. "A supportive husband, financial security time to develop her interests and appearance. She's also never had to make a real sacrifice in her life," Amanda said with sudden vehemence. "Did you know she has a full-time housekeeper, a personal shopper, and a social secretary? She's never cooked a meal for Jason, or done his laundry, or stayed up all night helping him with a school project." I was surprised by this insight. "Every family is different, Amanda. I'm sure Patricia loved Jason in her own way." Amanda shook her head. "That's just it, Mum. I've been so blinded by the Thomas family's wealth and status that I didn't see what was missing. Jason's told me things about how lonely his childhood was, how his parents were always traveling or at social events, how he basically raised himself with help from a series of nannies. This revelation matched some of my own observations about the Thomas family, but I had kept those thoughts to myself. Yesterday at the shower, Amanda continued, when I made that horrible toast, I was performing, trying to be what I thought Patricia wanted me to be, trying to secure my place in her world. And did it work? I asked quietly. Amanda laughed bitterly. Oh, yes. Patricia was thrilled. She called me this morning to discuss the nursery again and mentioned how refreshing it was that I understood my place in the family hierarchy. She took a step toward me, still clutching the journal. Mum, I am so sorry. What I said was unforgivable. I've spent my whole life resenting what we didn't have, instead of appreciating what we did have. You, your love, your absolute dedication. I wanted to embrace her, to tell her everything was forgiven, but something held me back. 30 years of putting Amanda's feelings before my own had led us here. Perhaps it was time for a new approach. What you said hurt me deeply, I admitted. Not just because it was said publicly, but because it made me feel like a failure, like all my sacrifices had meant nothing. You weren't a failure, Amanda insisted. You were amazing. I was the failure, too self-centered to see what was right in front of me. I took the journal from her hands gently. I think we both have some soul-searching to do. You're about to become a mother yourself. That changes everything. Will you still be part of the baby's life? Amanda asked, a note of panic in her voice. After what I said, I wouldn't blame you if... I will always want to be part of your life and your child's life, I assured her. But things need to change between us. There needs to be more honesty, more respect. And I need to know that you want me there, because you value me, not because you feel obligated. Amanda nodded solemnly. That's fair. More than fair after what I did. What about Patricia? I asked. She's still your mother-in-law, still the baby's grandmother. I'm going to talk to Jason tonight, Amanda said. About establishing some boundaries with his parents, about making sure our child knows the truth about both sides of their family. She hesitated, then added, and I'm going to tell Patricia that what I said at the shower was wrong. I was surprised by her resolve. That won't be an easy conversation. No, it won't, but it's necessary. She placed a protective hand on her belly. I don't want my child growing up valuing wealth and status over love and sacrifice. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. For the first time since arriving at the parking lot, I stepped forward and embraced my daughter. As her pregnant belly pressed against me, I felt a flutter, my grandchild making their presence known. We'll figure this out, I promised, holding Amanda close. One day at a time. Thank you for not giving up on me, Mum, she whispered against my shoulder. Thank you for the box, for showing me the truth. As we stood there in the fading light of the library parking lot, I felt a shift in our relationship, a movement towards something more balanced, more honest, and ultimately more healthy for both of us. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be uncomfortable conversations with the Thomas family, new boundaries to establish, old wounds to heal. But for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about my place in my daughter's life and in my grandchild's future. The confrontation with Patricia happened sooner than any of us expected. When Amanda and I returned to her condo that evening, planning to talk with Jason about everything that had transpired, we found Patricia already there, surrounded by fabric swatches and nursery design boards. She looked up as we entered, her perfectly plucked eyebrows rising at the sight of us together. Amanda's eyes still red from crying, my arm protectively around her shoulders. Amanda, darling, you look terrible, Patricia said, setting aside a paint sample. Have you been crying? That's not good for the baby. Jason emerged from the kitchen, his expression shifting from surprise to concern as he took in Amanda's emotional state. "What's going on?" "Mum just stopped by to finalize the nursery colors." Patricia stood smoothing her immaculate slacks. "Eleanor, I didn't expect to see you today. Amanda and I have a busy schedule planned this week. Doctor's appointment tomorrow, then meeting with the baby photographer, and Thursday, we're interviewing night nurses." "Actually, Patricia," Amanda said, her voice stronger than I expected, "I need to speak with you about something important." Jason moved to stand beside his wife, sensing the tension in the room. "What's happening?" Amanda took a deep breath, her hand finding mine for support. "Yesterday at the shower, I said something unforgivable. I told everyone that I wished Patricia had raised me and that she would be the only true grandmother to our baby." Patricia smiled smugly. "It was a lovely toast, dear. Everyone was so moved." "It was a lie," Amanda stated flatly. "And it was incredibly hurtful to my mother, who sacrificed everything to raise me on her own after my father died." The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia's smile froze her eyes, darting between Amanda and me. "Well, I'm sure Eleanor understands that these pregnancy hormones can make you emotional," she finally said, her tone condescending. "No one took it too seriously." "I did," I said quietly. "And so did Amanda, once she remembered our actual history together." Amanda squeezed my hand gratefully before continuing. "Mum sent me a box of memories this morning. 30 years of our life together. The struggles, the sacrifices, the love that never wavered, even when I was at my worst." Jason looked confused but supportive. "I don't understand what's happening, but I'm listening." Amanda turned to face him directly. "Your mother is a wonderful woman in many ways, but she's been taking over, making decisions about our baby, about our lives, and I've been letting her because I was dazzled by everything the Thomas name represents." "Nonsense," Patricia interjected sharply. "I've simply been offering guidance to a young couple preparing for their first child. If that's somehow offensive to Eleanor—" "This isn't about me being offended," I said, finding my voice. "This is about Amanda recognizing that motherhood isn't about designer nurseries or exclusive pediatricians. It's about showing up day after day through the hardest times. It's about putting your child's needs before your own, even when it breaks your heart." Patricia's face hardened. "Are you suggesting I wasn't a good mother to Jason? Because I can assure you he had every advantage a child could want." Jason stepped forward, then his expression thoughtful. "Mum, I think what Eleanor and Amanda are trying to say is that there are different kinds of mothering. Yes, you gave me advantages. The best schools, the best clothes, the best opportunities. But Eleanor gave Amanda something different and equally valuable." "She gave me herself," Amanda said softly, "completely and without reservation." Patricia's composure finally cracked. "This is ridiculous. I came here to help finalize nursery plans, not to be ambushed with some sentimental nonsense about different parenting styles." She began gathering her design boards. "Amanda, clearly you're not in a state to make decisions right now. We'll discuss this when you're thinking more rationally." "No, Patricia, we're discussing it now," Amanda insisted, a newfound steel in her voice. "I appreciate everything you've done to help prepare for the baby. Truly. But going forward, Jason and I will be making the decisions about our child. Both of our mothers will be involved as grandmothers, equally valued but in different ways." Patricia froze her knuckles white around the edge of a design board. "Equally valued. After everything I've contributed, the connections I've made for you, the expenses I've covered. Those things don't make you more valuable as a grandmother," Jason said, gently moving to stand beside his wife. "They're generous gifts, and we're grateful. but they don't buy you extra authority over our child. I see, Patricia said coldly. This is your doing, isn't it, Eleanor? Turning them against me with some sob story about your struggles as a single mother. Before I could respond, Amanda stepped between us. Stop. This isn't about competition between grandmothers. This is about recognizing that I've been unfair and disrespectful to the woman who raised me. The woman who deserves to be acknowledged and honored as my mother and my child's grandmother. Patricia stared at Amanda for a long moment, calculation evident in her eyes. Then abruptly her demeanor changed. The icy anger melted into a practiced smile. Of course, darling, I may have been a bit enthusiastic in my grandmother role. It's my first grandchild, after all. She placed a manicured hand on Amanda's arm. I only want what's best for you and the baby. I know, Amanda said, not entirely convinced by the sudden shift. And we value your input, but the final decisions will be ours. Absolutely, Patricia agreed smoothly. Now I should be going. Robert will be wondering where I am. She gathered her things efficiently, pausing at the door. Eleanor, I hope there are no hard feelings. We both want what's best for Amanda and the baby. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Patricia's rapid pivot from indignation to accommodations was impressive, but transparent. This wasn't over. She was simply retreating to regroup. After she left, the three of us collapsed onto the living room sofa, emotionally exhausted. I'm sorry, Mum, Amanda said, leaning her head on my shoulder like she used to do as a child. I should have stood up to her weeks ago. And I should have been more aware of what was happening, Jason added. My mother can be overwhelming. I'm used to it, so I sometimes don't notice when she's crossing boundaries. I looked at these two young people on the cusp of parenthood, facing family dynamics that would only grow more complicated with the arrival of their child. Being a family isn't easy, I told them. It requires constant communication, compromise, forgiveness. You two are going to be wonderful parents because you're willing to have the difficult conversations, to stand up for what you believe is right for your child. Amanda smiled tiredly. I had a good teacher. As we talked into the evening, making plans for the baby's arrival and discussing how to balance both sides of the family, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The hurt from the baby shower hadn't disappeared completely. Such wounds take time to heal. But it had begun to transform into something else. Hope for a new chapter in our relationship. Before I left that night, Amanda asked me to come with her to her next ultrasound appointment. I want you there, Mum, to see your grandchild. Those simple words, so genuinely spoken, were the beginning of our healing. The following months brought significant changes for all of us. Patricia, true to form, didn't give up her influence easily. She continued to send expensive gifts and offer unsolicited advice, but Amanda and Jason held firm to their boundaries. When Patricia overstepped, they gently but firmly redirected her. I found my own place in the preparation for my grandchild's arrival. I didn't have Patricia's resources, but I had other gifts to offer. I helped Amanda prepare mentally and emotionally for childbirth, sharing stories from my own experience. I taught her the lullabies my mother had sung to me. I finished knitting the yellow baby blanket, which Amanda insisted would have pride of place in the nursery, Patricia's designer aesthetic notwithstanding. Most significantly, I began to reclaim parts of myself that had been set aside during Amanda's childhood. Encouraged by both Amanda and Rachel, I enrolled in a weekly art class at the community centre. My fingers stiff from years of disuse, gradually remembered the joy of creating. My first completed painting in 30 years, a small watercolour of a mother and child, now hung in Amanda's nursery alongside the much more expensive artwork Patricia had commissioned. As Amanda's due date approached, I felt a sense of coming full circle. 32 years ago, I had been the one preparing to bring a new life into the world, terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. Now I would witness my daughter undertake the same transformative journey. The call came at 3:17 a.m. on a snowy February morning. Amanda's water had broken. She and Jason were heading to the hospital. "Can you come, Mum?" Amanda asked, her voice tight with pain and excitement. "I want you there. I'm on my way." I promised, already pulling on clothes and grabbing my pre-packed hospital bag. I arrived to find Amanda in the early stages of labor. Jason nervously timing contractions on his phone. When she saw me, Amanda's face relaxed visibly. "Thank God you're here," she said, reaching for my hand. "Tell me again how you got through this with me." For the next 14 hours, I didn't leave her side. I wiped her forehead, massaged her back, reminded her to breathe, and held her hand through the worst contractions. When she cried that she couldn't do it anymore, I reminded her of her own strength, of the generations of women in our family who had done this very thing. Patricia arrived midway through the labor impeccably dressed, despite the early hour, bearing flowers and a small blue teddy bear wearing a cashmere sweater. "It's a Thomas family tradition," she explained, placing the bear on the windowsill. "Every Thomas baby receives one at birth." Amanda, in the midst of a contraction, barely acknowledged her. When the pain subsided, she looked up at me, fear in her eyes. "Mum, don't leave me." "Never," I promised, squeezing her hand. "I'm right here." Patricia watched this exchange from across the room, something unreadable crossing her features. For perhaps the first time, she was witnessing the bond between mother and daughter that couldn't be purchased or manufactured, a bond forged through years of shared struggles and unconditional love. When it came time to push, Amanda clung to my hand on one side and Jason's on the other. "You can do this," I encouraged her. "You're the strongest person I know." With one final tremendous effort, Amanda brought her child into the world, a healthy, screaming baby girl with a full head of dark hair, just like her mother had at birth. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing the tiny, squirming infant on Amanda's chest. Through tears, Amanda looked up at me. "Mum, meet your granddaughter. We're naming her Ellie after you." In that moment, watching my daughter hold her daughter, hearing my name given to this new generation, I felt the circle of our family story complete itself. The hurts of the past hadn't disappeared, but they had been acknowledged, addressed, and now began to heal. Patricia stepped forward, her perfect composure finally cracking as she gazed at her first grandchild. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "Would you like to hold her?" Amanda asked, looking first at me and then at Patricia. Both of her grandmothers should welcome her to the world. I held little Ellie first, marveling at how something so small could contain so much potential, so many possibilities. Then gently I passed her to Patricia, our hands briefly touching in the exchange. Two grandmothers, so different in circumstance and style, united in love for this tiny new person. As I watched Patricia's carefully controlled features soften with wonder, I realized that perhaps there was room for both of us in this child's life. Different kinds of love, different kinds of wisdom, both valuable in their own way. In the quiet hospital room with snow falling gently outside the windows, our newly expanded family found a moment of perfect harmony. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new boundaries, to navigate new lessons in compromise and communication. But for now, this was enough. This recognition that family isn't about perfection or status or material advantages. It's about showing up, about forgiveness, about the courage to speak difficult truths and the grace to hear them. Sometimes we need to lose something to truly understand its value. My daughter had nearly lost me to learn that the love of a mother cannot be measured in material terms, but in consistent presence through life's hardest moments. As she now embarked on her own journey of motherhood, I knew she would carry that lesson with her, passing it down to little Ellie, along with all the love, wisdom, and strength that flowed through the generations of women in our family. Have you ever had a moment when someone finally recognized your sacrifices after years of feeling invisible? Or perhaps you've been the one who needed to learn to appreciate what was right in front of you all along. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of healing and rediscovery resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that their quiet sacrifices are seen and valued. Thank you for walking this path with me today. And remember that it's never too late to mend what's broken between the people you love.